But I think really it's never been more important in terms of the relationships and the trust that exists within supply chains than what we've seen over the last 12 months. I mean, if you look at for example, the medical supply chains, I know there's at the moment I saw something in the news today saying vaccine supplies in the UK may be delayed because a shipment coming from it. It's incredible the way that the supply chain has operated, and the amount of money that's gone through the supply chain globally is just absolutely staggering. But I think it's also shone a light on the importance of procurement and that wider management of supply chain as a resource for governments and organisations alike.
I think you're right. I think it has shone a light on procurement. But what it's uncovered, I think, is there are real extremes in what you see under that light. So I think in some cases you're seeing some really good examples of what I've been talking about, where procurement are effectively what I like to say, describe them as like commercial problem solvers. Totally ingrained in the fabric of the company, involved in pretty much everything, and sort of adding that kind of commercial nous to the conversations and that kind of project management. That's on one hand. On the other hand, I think what the light has discovered is that there's still a lot of procurement people who are frankly not very good. Not always their fault, but really kind of operational, transactional, doing stuff that arguably could be automated, being very rigid, being very blinkered, be not engaging, not speaking to stakeholders, not building relationships. So I think in some ways it's helped the profession, that focus, but in some ways it's just highlighted the fact that I think there's a real variability in the quality of people in this profession, probably like any profession, but I don't know about the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see, from a tech perspective, we definitely see the hindrance that a lot of organisations have around having manual processes, particularly in services, where the adoption of tools is at a very early stage. But do you think there's also a hindrance in some cases from the kind of direction of the senior, the board, the way the board run the company, in the sense of how much do they let procurement in? How much do they have them as a trusted advisor and a fixer and a facilitator within the business that allows them to, exactly as you described before, support the business, support function, but a very important support function? How often is it that that's hindered by them being seen as a marginalized function, whether it's almost like a bolt-on rather than something that's integral?
Well, I think it depends on the company and the culture. It's still a common thing that I hear and that I experience is about procurement complaining that we don't have a seat at the top table. That's the common complaint you hear. And my answer to that is always, well, why should you be there? It's very easy to think, well, of course we should be there, but okay, well, why? If the company, look, let's face it, the executives in any company are not going to be daft, right? So if they think that you're going to add value, they will ask you to get involved in stuff. The fact that you're not there means that you haven't convinced them yet. It's not some sort of vendetta. It's just simply that you haven't been very good at selling or convincing them the value that you're offering. And I've seen it where, companies where procurement have been almost the first person at the table. But equally, I've seen it at companies where they barely get a look in. And it all comes down to that ability to communicate, really, I think. Communicate what it is you're doing and also make sure that you're doing the right things as a team. So you need some direction from whoever's running your team. But you've got to be making sure that you're helping the business. Going back to what I said earlier, really, what is the business objectives that you're supporting? Is if you're focusing on cost reduction because procurement people are obsessed with it, and the company's focusing on revenue growth, why would you expect to? Is cost reduction going to help revenue growth? Well, it might. It might, because might mean that you can sell stuff cheaper, and then you sell more of it. But it might not. Perhaps if procurement were more involved in getting their supply chains more involved in, I don't know, innovation or being far quicker to market, that might help with revenue growth more, and you might find you're at the table. So I think it comes down to that level of maturity.